Ladies and gentlemen, dear deplorables, some remarks to the proposal of the Interreligious Interscientific Research Project and how it could be done. So some personal remarks I have done already in the previous videos, but I think what's left is what could be done in reality, and people who are not into it may not have an idea about it. So to explain this, we need to go a little bit into the topic of what is science and what is scientific logic. So when you have science and there is a logic, always it's based on logic, on nowadays mathematics. Mathematics is considered the highest science because it is well defined. You could even write numbers and symbols, and there is such an agreement worldwide about it, these numbers and symbols in mathematics, that you even wouldn't need any translation. There wouldn't be any different interpretations and understandings of these signs and symbols because of the well definition on an international level. So science, it doesn't mean that the mathematics is perfect. Mathematics is not perfect. It has its paradoxes, and so it needs to be developed one day, maybe into other number system as well. Maybe not. Just saying it. So because every science needs to be based on an axiom, because there is no science at all that explains everything. When it can't explain everything, and when there are contradictions, then it means that it's not yet perfect and it has still errors. And that's what's affecting all science and all understandings. So science is based on axioms. That means some basic knowledge what you don't question for a long time, but you have to question later on to bring a revolution into the science. The relativity of time and space was not considered under Einstein. It was an axiom that space and time is not relative, it's absolute. So that's this kind of axiom. And Newtonian physics could be developed and was very helpful. With Einstein's questioning the absolute function of time and space, bringing it into a relativity has broadened the understanding in some aspects because of questioning the axioms, and this may be necessary in the future as well in this way. So scientists are aware, people who apply science, they are not really aware that science is limited. Scientists and researchers are aware about it, and that's why they are researchers, because they have to deal with the limits of science and have to broaden theories of science and make it better than it has been before, otherwise there would be no research needed. And so there are different sciences with a different language, and the big advantage and what makes it the best science in the world nowadays, and the basic of many other sciences, is mathematics, because of the clear definitions of their different terms and symbols, and of the clear agreement about these definitions even on an international level. So to enhance the other science, and I would call it an adult science. So baby science is something that has not yet definitions, but has more interpretations than definitions. The bigger the lack in definitions, the more interpretations can arise. Example, the word aggression in psychology has different definitions. There's not yet an agreement to one. So there is even no communication possible when a word is not well defined, and it doesn't make sense to have a speech battle over it because there are different understandings. What matters is the understanding of the word and not the word itself. The logos, not the lexi. And so then to have this interreligious, interscientific research would require a development of science as itself as well, into higher levels, into clearer definitions, into clearer understanding of what it's about, and a clearer separation between interpretations and facts, what should be part of the scientific thinking, but it's not always like this. Archaeology has to deal, in fact, with a majority of interpretations out of very few facts known from past 100,000 years ago. The most theories in archaeology are interpretations, are not facts. And there's a lack in an awareness about it. There's a difference between an interpretation and a fact-based, logic-based understanding. There can be different interpretations. Just interpretation means it's just one of many, because as long as it's not a really fact-based conclusion, proven with evidence, then it is a set of different kind of interpretations, label, but maybe very different in one or other aspect. So that brings us to the religion science, I call it as a science. The main thing in science acts very realistic, so they do this kind of logical thinking, rational thinking, and they do experiments to prove or disprove it. So they go the realistic way. Religion is supposed like this too, but it's a baby science, so there are more interpretations and facts. There are words artificially created that are not defined, intentionally not defined, pretendedly is as a dogma not explainable, as a human dogma, not as a holy dogma. An example, but even Jesus said, at the beginning was a logic, and the logic became I am who I am, what is the name of the original name of God in the Bible. So logic was the main essence for Jesus in religion. Religion is logic, that's what he says, that's what the Bible says. And what has been interpreted in a different way, in an opposite way, even until now. So there is no contradiction between religion and science, but human made it like this, because when a fool wants to be a ruler, and he has to rule about subjects he has no clue about it, and he needs to define it as a belief, not as a knowledge, because he's incapable to get this knowledge, and to capture this knowledge, and to teach this knowledge, and to know this knowledge. So to remain a leader in religious groups, ideas have to invent an enemyship to science and logic, and what is originally has never been in religion. So the fact is that in religions, organizations, you have people who talk about things they have no clue about it. It's like people who go there and are foolish enough and ignorant enough to go there. It's like people who go there to somebody who has never seen a car and teach them how to drive a car. He has no clue about what is a car, and so he has no clue how to drive a car. But people go there and learn with him how to drive a car. That's what happens now in religious organizations. It was not in the beginning like this, because real prophets came from experience, background. Jesus has seen different space-time, or seen the third heaven, as well as Paul did, as well as Nathaniel did. Nathaniel had never an intention to become a leader, and was not mentioned as a leader of Christianity. He was just mentioned by Jesus as a truly righteous man, and that's why we see the third heaven quite soon. That's what the Bible writes. And so people talk about heaven, hell, demons, and pastors, they get paid for it, and that's why they teach it. But in fact, there are some dumb people who talk about things they have no clue at all about. Not like in the beginning when Jesus came and talked about things he has known, and very few of his followers followed him and got this experience and teached about it. Nowadays, the amount of people who know what its religion is about is, with and without religion, less than 1%. But they exist. Maybe more outside religious organizations than inside religious organizations. But anyway, we have still some hidden knowledge and some religious texts. Not everything has been falsified. Some traditions have been continued, and at least partially in huger amounts. Have been conserved in their original knowledge, and so it has been passed. So in a pliable way in some mystic groups. Doesn't mean that this kind of mystic teachers know everything about everything. As they know about certain specific things, what can be proved in laboratories as well. So the approach what I have in my mind was more about doing research involving biophysics, biochemistry, genetics in the visible way and the material way, because of the interaction between the different space-times, but real religion is about higher than space-times than we can imagine. We are in a three space dimension, one time dimension space-time, what we realize. But I suppose that there are other space-times as well, higher dimensional, what we cannot sense right now, what we cannot experience right now. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And scientists know that when they have to deal with higher space-times, then these space-times have qualities very different to our space-time in many aspects. So different that they are out of normal imagination of people who have no experience in it. That makes it very difficult. Mathematicians always try to explain it in a way that when somebody who lives in a two-dimensional space of a piece of paper, walking from left to right, and the paper, suddenly realize that he has the possibility to jump into a third space dimension. Coming back, it would be seen in the two space dimension that somebody disappears within this piece of paper, two-dimensional space-time, and suddenly appears again. Quite soon later, appears again in a very different location. So jumping high, coming back. When you don't come back in the same space-time, you can jump also 10 meters far away, something like this. So that's something like very, very weird. The problem is when somebody who had this experience of the third space-time would explain it to the two space-time creatures, they wouldn't believe it because they can't imagine it, and because they can't imagine it, they may put him into a psychiatry. So these are some realistic problems, and it's a quite common argumentation from mathematicians dealing with higher space-times. So the research should go in this way to, like in a scientific way, collecting people with phenomena that are not explainable at all, now related to some spiritual ways, making measurements, verifying it, collecting data, and considering in the research the existence of higher space-time dimensions and calculating possibilities, also including the consequences by the interactions of other space-times. That's what I would suppose for the first level of the interscientific, interreligious research program. People with different religious and cultural backgrounds should be collected, any disabilities, and people of different sciences as well. Different sciences have different languages, and so they need to be pushed to get an agreement about definitions accepted in all sciences on an international level, so that science can get more efficient as well. And the trouble is when you just collect from one group people, they may tend to become missionaries and interpret it in a way of their dogmas, of their religion and cultural background. Scientifically, approach is always to compare different events and phenomena under different circumstances, also under different cultures in this way, and different backgrounds, to find the real explanation. That's what's about. And this way we come closer in our understanding to God. And this way we serve Jesus by bringing back the awareness God is logic. And in the beginning there was a logic, and the logic became I am, what is the name, the original name.